I'm Noga, and I'm from StoreMaven. At StoreMaven, we help top mobile brands increase their conversion in the store by enabling them to understand how their users engage and behave on the App Store in order to get to know their users better and increase conversions. Based on the billions of data points that we've analyzed over the years, we understood what makes up of a good ASO strategy. And I'm going to share with you some of these insights today. So the main component of a good ASO strategy is understanding what drives your users. And as an example, I chose to share with you today a timeline of HBO Now store updates. As an example of an app that understands how to constantly update their store based on the changing users' interests. So you can see that back in March 2017, HBO Now came to us with an issue of users not understanding the difference between HBO Now and HBO Go. We helped them translate this issue into a hypothesis, and this ended up being live in the store. Later, in July 2017, users were mainly discovering HBO Now through the new season release of Game of Thrones. And so this was emphasized through their store assets. Later on in December, during off seasons, it was important for them to show a variety of shows, a catalog, and messages of binge watching, for example. Then the message of cross-platform took over, while still showing the catalog of shows and the most relevant shows for that time period. Later on, it was a more subtle change. And all of these changes might seem obvious in retrospect, but remember that all of these were part of a hypothesis, part of an experiment. So understanding your users can really help come up with the best hypotheses. Another layer of understanding your users means understanding how they behave on the App Store. And we, over the years, understood that the users on the App Store and on Google Play can be categorized into two types of users. We have decisive users and exploring users. Decisives land on your store. They stare at the screen for a few seconds. They don't make any active action, and they make their decision whether to drop or install based on the first impression. Now, the first impression is this screen that you see over here. It consists the icon, the title, subtitle, the first two assets of the gallery, and that's basically it. Explorers, as opposed to decisives, take their time to explore the app a bit further. So they can scroll through the galleries, read reviews, read the description, etc. And then they decide whether to install or drop. We see that the more content users consume on the App Store, the better quality users they become. They're less likely to uninstall, they're more likely to open the app for the first time, and they become higher payers. Top brands use the App Store as more than just a way to get more users. It's part of your onboarding experience. Think of this as a way to inform users about what your app has to offer, the different features and different kind of things they can do on the app. So brands that understand how users engage on their store can understand what type of messages must be part of the first impression and what kind of messages can be part of the exploration journey. In the next slide, I'll show you an example for why understanding user behavior on the store is important. Okay. So at StoreMaven, we developed the ability to see every live Google experiment out there. We can see the different variants, and the different assets that each variant includes. And we can derive which variant was the winner based on the variant that was implemented in the live store when the experiment was concluded. I chose to show you this experiment by Deezer because the variants are really interesting. So you can see that the first variant, the control, uses a panoramic screenshot, which means that more than one of the screenshots have a creative that's going through. In this case, it's the phone device. The difference between variant A and B are the captions, the boldness of them. And in this experiment, you can see that variant A ended up winning. And now notice that the message of listen offline appears in this variant on the third screenshot, which is part of the first impression. And in the control, it appears on the fourth screenshot, and it's not part of the first impression. When we see that variant A was the winner, it's hard to understand what caused this variant to be the winner. Whether it was the design style that uses kind of individual screens in each screenshot, or whether it was that important message of listening offline that is part of the first impression. It's also difficult to understand in this experiment what was the traffic blend during the time of the experiment. Okay. Developers that look into understanding their users may have already adopted a strategy of localizing their store. Here you can see an example for localization, which is the literal translation of creatives, both creatives themselves and the language. In this case, it's US and UK, so obviously they're both in English, but the creatives are just suited to another geographical location. Culturalization, on the other hand, is taking this idea one step further, and it's understanding what type of features suit what culture. And here you can see in Light really adopting the culturalization strategy and showing completely different features and creatives in their Japanese store compared to the US store. If you're not localizing your store yet, you should probably start because it doesn't end there. The future of ASO means not only understanding your users as a whole, but really understanding the different types of users. Different users have different downloading intent. For example, users that come in from search, that typed in your app, might have a very high intent and they only need a confirmation that this is the app they were looking for. Browsing users, however, are probably assessing your app compared to your competitors, and they need more specific, unique selling points that are relevant to your app specifically compared to other apps out there. Within referral traffic, and we'll go through in a second through the different traffics. Within app referral, there's also different types of intent because users are coming in from different creatives, from different ads, showing them different topics or different aspects of your app. Let's understand what each user journey actually looks like. So search is users that go onto the search tab and enter in specific keyword that is relevant to your app. It could be something related to the app specifically, to the brand, or to competitors, or to the category. Browse traffic are users that discover your app from anywhere on the App Store besides search. Web referral, users that are redirected to your product page directly from another app. This could be all the UA traffic. And web referral traffic. This is traffic that is redirected from a mobile web. Generally, this would be your mobile website. Notice that the first impression of the app changes with the different funnel. So users coming in from search will first see, or the main things that they will see are the first three assets of your gallery. Browse will just see a small business card of your app, mainly the icon. And then app referral and web referral will see the entire product page because they land directly there. So how should we address these different segments? Okay, in order to develop a good strategy, the first step is to understand the unique blend of your app. Where do impressions come from? Where is the app discovered from? And where are installs coming from? In this example, you can see that the app is mainly discovered from search in purple and from browse in blue. However, when you look at installs, you can see that search is bringing in the smallest share of app units. This means that there is large potential to optimize for search traffic. The next step in this case might be to go on to analyzing the keywords and to see what type of keywords bring in the largest share of traffic and where you fall behind in these creatives. Okay, so after you understood your traffic band, the next step is to determine which audience you want to optimize for. Not every channel brings in the same quality traffic, and addressing them all at once might be impossible. So there are different factors that can be taken into consideration. The traffic segment that brings in the top payers, or complementing your kind of general marketing strategy, or highest potential sources, like we've seen in the previous slide with search. As an example, we can look at Tinder. Say Tinder wants to penetrate a new market, China. And in China, they might be facing a new challenge. So it might be easier to acquire female users compared to male. And let's say their main traffic source is app referral. They might decide that the next channel they want to optimize are app referrals or male users coming from app referral, while keeping in mind female users and not harming their experience. Okay, now that you understand who you want to optimize for, the next step is to hypothesize. And in order to understand what kind of messages can work for who, let's look at the different channels that users are coming in from. So starting with search, in this example, a user entered the keyword cheap tickets. And you can see that the two search results that appear on the screen are Expedia and Priceline. Expedia is not addressing the cheap tickets keyword directly, while Priceline is directly sending messages relevant to that keyword. This is not necessarily bad. Expedia might not consider this keyword or this type of keywords an important and relevant source for their users. And maybe even their main traffic source is web referral, and therefore these messages work better. Next traffic source is web referral. Here you can see that Forever 21 is sending users from their mobile website to their app store using a smart app banner. And you can see that here, when users land on the App Store page, they understand that they landed in the correct place. This is the Forever 21 app. But And this is not always the case. Sometimes users can land here and be very confused. For example, if the icon don't fit between what they've seen before. But in this specific example, even though the user understood that they landed on the relevant app, they don't see any value proposition for the app specifically compared to their mobile web page. Also, they don't see the same promotions that were presented to them on the website. So this can harm the user experience and can actually get users to drop off completely. The next example is app referral. And Tropicat is sending users from a Facebook ad to their product page. You can see here a coherent transition between the ad to the product page. All the important assets or aspects of this app are demonstrated in both stops, but repetition is definitely avoided. So both, you can see here the match 3 screen, the decorating aspect, and a character, and none of them repeat in the same way. So it's important for users to not see messages too repeatedly. Users get tired fast and you want to constantly be getting more and more information. So it's important for each stop along the user funnel to build on top of the previous one. Okay, so after we decided which source we're going to optimize for, and after we understood what kind of messages are going to derive or to make the big difference, it's time to test. And just to put us all on the same page, I listed here the 4 main A/B testing solutions, and I'm going to briefly talk about the pros and cons of each of them. So Sandbox, this is using a platform like StoreMaven to send a small share of the users into a test environment to see which variant they prefer. The upsides is that this is a test environment. The live store traffic is likely to not be affected. You will be getting insights on user engagement like you've seen before. Accurate statistical methods that will tell you when it's fine to close a test with confidence and when you can close variants along the way. And you can also segment the traffic. So you can decide what traffic you're going to send and what segments. For example, you can segment the traffic by gender or by age group or different interests, etc. Main downside is the media and platform cost. Okay, moving on to Google Experiments, and the main upside here is that it's free and it's testing the natural flow. However, this is also the major downside, that it risks harming live traffic. Also, the results that you see on Google Experiments will probably only be valid for Google Play. I repeatedly see that the things that work on Google Play don't necessarily work on iOS. And the main reasons are the different nature of users, the different layout of the store, and the different competitive landscape. Okay, the 2 hacks to A/B testing, starting on with Apple Search Ads creative testing or creative sets, is so the main upside is that it's testing the natural search ads flow, but you cannot control the sample size, and this will only be valid for search traffic. This is used for ROAS optimization and not so much for App Store creative optimization. Pre-post live store testing. The idea is to change the App Store and then compare to time period. This is free, but it's extremely risky. So you're putting something on the live store and sending 100% of your users to that variant without an indication of whether that's working or not. It's likely that app developers that use this method are going to be a bit more conservative with the variants that they're testing, and it's going to lead to lower impacts. Okay, after we tested and we found an optimized version, it's time to update. And when we update the live store, there are a few factors that need to be taken into account before analyzing, which is the next step. So here you can see the point in which the update was made. You can see the total app units and then kind of by source. And the factors that need to be taken into consideration while analyzing are seasonality, competitor landscape, OS release date, keywords ranking updates, etc. But when you look at the overall, it might be difficult to understand what the impact was. And for that reason, we break it down by source. In this example, you can see app units per apifer and per search. These two metrics can be broken down even further. So app referral can be broken down into app referrers, and search can be broken down into organic and paid. But in this very, very high level analysis, you can see that app referral caused a positive impact and search faced a negative impact. This could be either positive or negative, depending on what was the goal of this update and based on the segment that we wanted to optimize for. Okay, so ASO world has matured, and things that worked in the past might not be enough in the future. Now, because we don't have the ability to customize the store for different flows yet, I recommend to follow these 6 steps that I just talked about. And developers that really take the time to develop a holistic approach are likely to win the App Store. So they get a competitive advantage and they constantly rank higher. They acquire users more cost effectively, and they end up generating more growth. Okay, thank you. I'll try to answer some questions in the time that I have left.